All right, let's move on. Now, Hody, it's been a couple of weeks since we had to talk about libertarian party politics. We've addressed a lot of libertarian issues, a lot of things of interest from libertarian perspectives, and it's been a good time, especially with the economics, the tariffs, and a lot of the executive orders ruling by fiat in the Trump by regal decree, rather the Trump administration. But tonight, let's go back to old school Libertarian Party politics. Now, the first thing let's talk about is something that you brought to my attention, which was a video that surfaced of former chair Angela McArdle, who resigned earlier this year uh, under questionable circumstances. From the perspective of her opponents, she resigned because she was under potential investigation for improper behavior while in office. From her supporters' perspective, she left to take a break and possibly take a position with the Trump administration. Some people even rumored working for, I believe, RFK. At the end of the day, nothing has happened so far. There has been no investigative results, to my knowledge, by the LNC. And also, Angela has not seemed to have taken any positions in the Trump administration officially. So, with all that context, all that background, Hody, what was the video you alerted me to this past week?
Yeah, it was kind of shocking because this is somebody you would think when news of your investigation, comes out and then you resign at like 3 a.m. or whatever it is the next day. Of course, you say it's for a job a job that never ends up panning out. We just kind of it looks bad, right? And of course the information we've had Jake Porter on, it is whether you want to legally call it embezzlement, improper funds. uh, I'll go ahead and use colloquial behavior that way, or colloquial terminology that way. There's nothing like legally implicating here, but it's scummy regardless, right? Like, you're taking money. You hired your baby daddy as a contractor. People didn't know. They found out. You used your executive authority to get him
Right.
hired. The LNC, Mises controlled at the time, by the way, heavily, was like, that's inappropriate. Like, that
Right.
needs to stop. And then you create a company, a shell company, to pretend to do work, or let's say actually do work, whatever, right? Even if he actually is doing work, the bottom line is you keep him hired. You just hire him through a way that was supposed to make it so we can't tell who that the same guy is. So basically kept that money going through the Kennedy Victory Fund, through the Freedom Calls LLC that they've got. And so it was, when I saw her speaking at a libertarian event, I was like, it's like if the American founding fathers invited Benedict Arnold to like George Washington's inauguration ceremony. You would just be like, I don't think this guy belongs here, right? So it was odd, but this is the Free State Project. That is New Hampshire. For those who haven't read A Libertarian Walks into a Bear, I strongly recommend it. These are very, they are not the libertarians you want to represent libertarianism. We'll just say that. There's so much in the book, it would be hard to go over. But basically, if you were to take like the worst libertarians and then watch them be dysfunctional, that's essentially what happened. The Free State Project, there are people I want to say that participate in it that I consider great friends,
Right.
in it as well. So I'm not condemning the entire thing. In concept, it's good, right? Consolidate libertarians, see if you can etch out a piece of the electoral puzzle. Ultimately, unfortunately, they turned out to be a bunch of antisocial right-wing.
Right. So let me just slow you a little bit,
Sure.
to give
I haven't even
context
gotten to the video yet.
Right. It's all to the contextual background, right? So
Yeah.
it's so the way I see it, and maybe I'm wrong, but again, I'm probably more similar to people who are either libertarians with a capital L, or not necessarily anarchists, not necessarily free staters, But when you're talking about the Free State Project, the whole concept, I think Cliff Mahoney does the same thing for the Republicans, right? They are saying, like, look, we're not making any legislative headway as the Libertarian Party in general. So, what our plan is, every like-minded libertarian that views the world we do, let's all pick one spot in the US, one state to move to. And then once we move there, we will exert our collective influence to make the state more libertarian, get libertarian councilmen, aldermen, whatever, local representatives, start building the community as a libertarian community. That's the Free State Project. It's sort of like the guys who wanted to build plastic islands outside 3 mile limits and declare those sovereign nations, right? Except this one is using the system, the US electoral system, to go in and take over a state, right? That's basically, I think, the Free State Project, correct?
Yeah, and honestly, that's about all we need to talk about with them, because they're just the ones who extended this invitation to them. I felt
Right.
it was just worthy of kind of a simple example of like who in the liberty movement would be giving this person a microphone, right? Because
Right.
it's absurd, right? Like I said, it is wild. And so there is kind of a, because these guys, of course, were part of the sellout crowd, the Donald Trump crowd, that this is, of course, when they recognize, you know, the person who orchestrated the sellout, Angela McArdle, this is somebody who they would give a microphone to. You know, the embezzlement to them helps sink the Libertarian Party in favor of Donald Trump. And so why not, right? Like, this is a great person to kind of invite over to have them give her perspective. And so she told the story of how this sellout was orchestrated. And
Right.
talk about eye-opening. Now, I will say this. All this is grains of salt that she's the person saying it. She, of course, we've talked about this before, has had honesty issues. She said she had to leave to take a job right away. She said it was a big job. Then it was no news. Then it was the news is coming. The news was coming. And then she said, actually, it already happened. It was a temp job. It wasn't with the administration. Now I'm looking for work again. And then has already said, oh no, that big job is still coming even after that point. Conflicting, obviously, like, and that
Right.
if we went into Angela McArdle's deceptive history, obviously this would go on for a while. So all that said, this is from her mouth, but I find that what she confessed to be so egregious that you wouldn't admit to it unless it was true, right? Like, why
Right.
would you say you did this kind of thing?
Right.
And so to detail just, you know, as much as I can of what the video is about quickly. So she got a call in 2023 from Richard Grenell, Rick Grenell.
Right.
He is a former like intelligence director of national intelligence, worked with the Trump administration. And this was in 2003. And he was like, hey, listen, Donald Trump wants the libertarian vote. What can he do to get it? Right. And she said they met together and talked. They actually met in person, decided to
Right.
meet together and talk. And so they got together, and he was like, listen, we got to get you to Mar-a-Lago, right? Like, we got to get you there. We'll find a way to make that happen. And so Angela, I know she said she had 2 suits that she survived related to this, but flew to Mar-a-Lago, met with Donald Trump, and he was just like, what can I do to get the libertarian vote? And she was like, well, I was trying to think. She mentioned a lot about her thought process. She was like, I could say things about, I guess, her baby daddy, who is now her husband, Austin, was like, maybe fentanyl, something, legalization, I don't know. And Angela was like, you're not going to get that passed with this guy, right? Like, that's not who he is. But he says he loves to free people. And he said he just finished coming from the court where they prosecuted Ross Ulbricht, and was just like, okay, one thing that he might be willing to do is free Ross. And she said that he said, oh, I love freeing people, right? That sounds great. So they enjoyed a steak. She told a funny story, and I do believe this happened. In fact, we have a picture of it, but he orders a well-done steak. He eats it with ketchup. He actually tries to have her not well-done steak sent back because he was like, oh, that's not cooked. And she's like, no, this is what steak is, you know what I mean? She has the Diet Coke and, of course, the chalice, you know, the nice chalice glasses there that he's got. And so she enjoys that dinner. And, of course, worth hearing for yourself. I have never gushed about my girl the way she gushes about Donald Trump. And if you think that's an exaggeration, it is not. She's like, he is the sweetest, warmest, most loving, wonderful, sensitive person, right?
Well,
Like going
yeah,
on and on.
I mean, it was obvious to anyone who saw her, not just in this speech, but in any speech involving Trump. It was obvious where her true loyalties were, you know, and honestly, that's where people like myself from the very beginning, from Reno, said she's a MAGA plant. You know, it's like it was so obvious to everyone where her true allegiance was. Now, the reason what you're describing is critical to me is, first of all, the irony of her working with a former intelligence officer while simultaneously referring to anybody who voiced opposition to her as a Fed, right? Like that, the irony there is delicious, right? The hypocrisy is delicious there because it's obvious, right? Again, how often do we have to see you accuse other people baselessly of what you yourself are guilty of, right? So she's working with a former intelligence officer to cut a deal for the LP. Now, I know there's a lot of people, Hody, and again, we've talked about it on past episodes, but I think it bears repeating. We're not opposed to cutting deals politically. At the end of the day, politics is at on one level or another, it's the art of compromise, right? Especially since we don't live in dictatorships, thankfully, or mostly not dictatorships. Right. So to her, there's people out there saying like, well, what's wrong with her trying to cut a deal? You know, two issues, in my opinion. One, this wasn't the case after we had our convention, after we had our nominee, because at that point you would have said, okay, Dave Smith is our nominee. Chase Oliver, as it turned out. Rechtenwald won, which was her second, the MC's second choice, right? After Smith dropped out. At that point, you might say, okay, let's size up our candidates' chances. If we can't win, especially in a crowded field that included RFK at that point, what is the best we can do? What can we do to make it better for liberty? I don't know. I'm glad Ross is out. I've said from the beginning, I'm not sure that that's the thing I would have extracted from Trump, right? Because on the same day he pardoned Ross Ulbricht, he had a separate announcement that drug dealers should be given the death penalty, right? So it didn't correct it on the liberty scale. You know, her deal accomplished nothing. I'm happy Ross is out of jail, absolutely. But how are we feeling about everything else? So that's one thing that's wrong. And then the second thing that's wrong is, did she run to become chair on the strategy of we're going to be selling out our vote every election cycle?
No.
Let's talk about the honesty of that, right? The honesty of saying, elect me. Like, I mean, at least Trump, as much as I disagree with everything he said, just as much as I disagree with all of Harris's campaign promises, right? Trump, I'll give him credit. He told you what he's going to do, and he'll do it. Whether it's constitutional or not, it doesn't seem to bother him. But he's doing what he promised he was going to do. Give him, I guess, half a credit for that. McArdle, as running for the head of the LNC, she laid out very specific things, if I recall, Hody, about what her reign, what her time in that chairmanship was supposed to do. It was supposed to increase membership. It was supposed to increase revenue. It was supposed to get more libertarians elected. In her 2 years, all those metrics went down. We've documented it before. They all went down. You can have plenty of excuses for it, but all those metrics went south under her leadership. And the reason you know that is because she doesn't want to talk about those metrics. She wants to talk about influence, these ethereal, very hard to measure things. You know, hey, we get more Twitter retweets now. We get more X retweets. Well, really? Is that what we were supposed to do when you took off? That wasn't it. It was elect more libertarians, push liberty, money. We're broke. The LP is broke. I don't know if people realize that out there. And we have to sell off our assets as a party thanks to her mismanagement. So to me, those are the objectionable things. It's not so much that she thinks this is a viable strategy. You and I know this is not a viable strategy. It's never a viable strategy. There's no reason for the big guys to continue when your membership is dwindling down to 11,000 people, that they're going to consider you to be viable for anything in the future. They took what they needed from you. That's it. They don't need you anymore. So sorry, I didn't mean to go off like that, Hody, but that to me is the essence of why her now having the goal to say, guess what? I'm coming back in 26. And this is what we're doing in 26, Hody. And that's why it's important to call this out. But I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
You're good.
Finish up with me, brother. What else did she have to say in that video?
You're good. I mean, it's right to bring up the honesty aspect of this, because really libertarians, listen, if you've got a radical idea, propose it. We've had Vermin Supreme before. I worked for him, right? I loved it, right? We've had Lars Mapstead, who we've had on the show. Very controversial, very specific idea. I thought kind of cool, right? Like, I am down, and libertarians are sometimes down to kind of do a radical, hey, maybe
Right.
don't so well in a general. Let's try to take one electoral vote. Let's try to focus here, focus that. There were these ideas floating around, but they're supposed to be honest and open about it. As you mentioned, McArdle plenty of times was like, she even said, judge me by these numbers, right? Money, membership, elections won.
These are my KPIs, right? These are my KPIs. That was her thing, right?
And so now all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, what I did transcended that, right? I got somebody freed. Well, now you and I have also talked about this on the show, and I think it's important to note my history here as a Republican strategist.
Right.
We make these calls all the time. Nick Sarwark took this call. Joe Biden took this call. Kamala Harris actually made calls to a libertarian friend of mine, in an attempt to be like, hey, if you endorse me, what can I do in exchange or whatever? The thing is these exchanges are always pitifully low, including in this case, freeing Ross Ulbricht. Angela even mentioned, oh, I love freeing people anyway. This isn't even like giving you anything. Okay, well, maybe then dream a little bigger, right? Like make a little bit of a bigger push, a bigger stink, right? Like get some things in writing. Another thing that I mentioned that you've really got to do when you deal with Republicans and Democrats, because they'll get your offer to sell out, but unless you put it on paper, it might not happen, in fact, more on that in just a moment here. But yeah, like the issue here is that we will be fielding these calls to sell out in the future. They'll always offer them, Joe Biden gave us a freebie with like Leonard Peltier, right? Like that wasn't even in exchange for anything. He was just pardoning a bunch of people that was on the list. How much are we willing to sell out for Biden pardoning him? How much do we sell out for
Assange.
Joe Biden,
Assange.
For Assange, right? And so, McArdle, for me, she talks about this like being brave, because this is the best she could do, because they disagreed over fentanyl wars. There were things that she knew she wasn't going to get. And so she was like, this is one, he just came from the same court that prosecuted Ross. So even though and to be completely accurate, not just wanted a death sentence, but actually signed an executive order declaring an actual war, in which he actually escalated that just a week or two ago, authorizing active conflict military action against cartels. No pre-authorization needed. If you believe that they are an operating cartel, you're allowed to fire on them like anybody else. Blowing up Ross Ulbricht is now something that is totally fine and would have no repercussions in the hands of the Trump administration. So,
right. And by the way, just so we don't get people who might object to how you characterize, we're not saying that Ross Ulbricht was a drug dealer. That's part of what he was accused of, that he got jailed for. So from the legal perspective, the thing he pardoned Ross for, as soon as he did that, he turned around and said, open season on them. It's the death penalty. We're declaring war on these people. That is the juxtaposition of what is being claimed as a victory for by McArdle, rather. And again, I want to emphasize, like, we've had friends of the show here come on, Martha Bueno being a big one of them, where she said, look, I just want to see Ross freed. And hey, we're all down with that. He shouldn't have been incarcerated to begin with. But at what cost? And could you have made it more generalized? Like no more death penalty for nonviolent drug offenses, like whether it's dealing, importing, whatever, but we didn't get that. Right. Instead, we got this regal guy in office who's issued more executive orders than any other president in his first 3 months in office, more than FDR, more than the original President King, FDR. Trump is just signing these things and sending them off, right? Like everything's an emergency. Everything is an invasion, right? Everything is we're going to get run over by some unseen army. So McArdle, when she starts to talk like this, take it in context, right? Yes, she's playing to a very specific audience. She's playing to the free state people. So, even if we gave her a little bit of leeway that, okay, I'm trying to appeal to a certain audience that's before me, Hody, I also was shocked a little bit at like the openness of this, right? Because she's laying out her previous plan and her intent to do it again. So I'll just push this along a little bit, right? She basically said, we're going to look for candidates to run for president who can get 10% of the vote. And once they secure that, trade it for a cabinet position.
That is exactly it. Yeah.
Right.
That she would take the 10%. Once so you're running a legitimate campaign, you drop out, you get a cabinet position in the current administration. And she said, because then you can do the things like what Kennedy is doing, which she and our views on liberty are apparently very different, but
right.
But yeah, that's the idea. And the idea was that, and she even says specifically, this was supposed to be Dave Smith, right? This was supposed to be Dave Smith, who ran a campaign, dropped out after getting like some popularity, traded all that into a cabinet position with Donald Trump. It's a strategy. And like I said, like you said earlier, the libertarians should just have been able to vote on that, right? It's a strategy. It's controversial. Hey, some people can talk about it, debate it, whatever, on the merits of that strategy. But the bottom line is it was hidden. And in fact, Angela McArdle said many times that this was something. In fact, I have a friend, Jacob Winograd with Biblical Anarchy, who was downright insistent that she only made this pivot after she thought Chase Oliver was a weak candidate. And she seemed to suggest that a lot. And her camp was like, we just don't like Chase. So we're like, what can we do? We're floundering in the water here. We need to pivot. Let's basically do all but endorse Donald Trump. Let's help fundraise for him. Let's sell out. Let's do the sellout. And we have now come to find out this was nothing about Chase Oliver at all. The sellout was always going to happen. It had been in the works since 2003. Our Republican nominees are still some of them not even entered the race yet, right? But gathering attention, visiting states, and she is already orchestrating how to sell them out. Now, according to her, apparently Dave Smith was on the same page. He would have taken the nomination, run a small, effective campaign, and dropped out to get a cabinet position. Dave Smith kind of says, like, at first when somebody called him out on this, was like, oh no, you discovered a big plot. Like, you must be so smart. And then was like, whatever, I don't like kind of respond to these made up accusations. But the accusation was made up by Angela McArdle, somebody who he not only loves, but if you hear him, the most glowing of endorsement for her.
He praises her. There's no doubt. He praises her.
Sellout, right?
Yeah, he praises her. Absolutely.
So if it's a lie, Dave, your really good friend is lying about you, saying that you were on board about this. I don't know. Both of these two kind of have issues in my history. So at this point, we choose who to believe. But it's interesting. Regardless, we can still talk about if this strategy is smart, and if this is an ethical way to go about it. And it's really, like you mentioned, the fact that she's so open about this is so wild. I've got a quote from her here, because they wanted to confirm, the Trump campaign wanted to confirm with her, hey, did you actually follow through on your end of the bargain? And she says, quote, the data is there. The votes went to Donald Trump and not to Chase Oliver. She talks about how she got the crypto donors, and instead of getting them to donate to Chase, she put them into contact with Donald Trump. Was like, here's how you did. So she said, I not only got him votes, I got him money. I was able to fundraise for him and help him, and I put him in contact with all the right people. And in exchange, what does she say? How does Trump doing? This is a quote. They are pretty much delivering on everything, unquote. So To her, the sellout has worked fantastically. Donald Trump has been an excellent libertarian and has followed through on all his libertarian promises, including the ones that Angela said he would do that he didn't do. Apparently, that's about what I have to say about it. I thank you for letting me kind of break down the video. It's a 28-minute video. It's worth looking at because I think
Right.
the tone is almost more shocking than the revelation itself. Her love
Right.
of, oh, what an honor it was to meet this wonderful person. Oh, I already had the art of the deal on me, and I knew that he would love it if I asked him to sign this. And when
Right.
I gave him everything he wanted, he was so nice to me and to Austin and held my baby. And they're all so lovely people. And how could anybody hate these wonderful, snuggly people? And I'm over here just like, well, I don't know. If you tried telling him no, ask E. Jean Carroll how that goes, right? Like, he is not
Right.
somebody who is like all warm and snuggly unless, yeah, you're offering to sell him the election, essentially. You played kingmaker. I'm sure he acted appropriately grateful for it. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, and thanks for that sort of summary. And by the way, for all the folks that are maybe watching, feel free to send us your comments. What are your thoughts? Was this a successful gambit by Angela McArdle before the allegations allegedly forced her from her position? Or do you agree with sort of Hody and me that this was a disingenuous, dishonest position for her to take? And I mean, to the extent that under her sort of I'm not going to say approval for some of the attacks on Chase, but certainly she did nothing to discourage them. Um, really, for her master plan, she was able to parlay the fact that Chase is gay and use it as a basis for all these ad hominem attacks from the Mises Caucus, from the Free Staters, uh, and then to blame the poor performance of the LP in the general election on Chase Oliver and Mike Termott, where she'll constantly say like, "Hey, it's a good thing because look how horrible they did," and you're ignoring that she torpedoed the campaign of whoever other than Dave Smith, with the possible exception of Rechtenwald, would have won that slot. It could have been Lars. It could have been Josh Smith. It could have been Hornberger. It could have been anybody. It would have had the same result because they were not getting any support and they were being actively sabotaged by leadership. So, what do we think about her saying that we're going to do this again in 26? Um, it's kind of strange because the current chair, Stephen Nicaela, who we've had on the show right after he got the chair, seems like a solid dude in my opinion. I've seen ever since he got the chair, he's been posting more on X, and I've seen a lot of his posts and stuff. Seems like a decent enough guy. Seems measured in a lot of his responses. Uh, I'm interested to see how he reacts to this and what he has to say about it because the other thing about Angela, and I hate calling her Angela because it makes it sound almost like I either know her or I'm friendly with her. So I'll just say McArdle. The thing with McArdle is she's not saying, let's apply this strategy on a state level to every race, meaning that she's only selling out for Trump. She's only selling out for MAGA. I have not once heard her say, I went to Biden and I said, hey, you're doing good. Let's build on this Assange commutation and let's get Ross going.
Yep.
She didn't go to Kamala Harris.
And speaking of honesty, this is something, remember when we said, well, they said we extended the invite to Trump and we were like, did you extend this invite to Biden? They said yes. And that answer is clearly it was no, right? This was not, they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. They said Trump, and then it turned out as we did digging, Trump asked if he could come. They were like, sure. People found out about it. They're like, well, are we going to invite Biden too? And they're like, oh, we did already. We did already. Promises not kept. I mean, it's so weird because they even said Trump would field all the libertarian criticisms, right? Like our top 10 criticisms. He did not do that. Nope. They said he would pay for the convention for that center. That's why the Libertarian Party is broke right now. He did not pay for that. And so It's funny that he's even sticking Angela with these bills, and you would think if this wasn't the plan the whole time, you'd be upset. Like, John, if you and I, as friends, right?
Yeah,
Like, we
yeah,
like each other.
right.
If you say, hey, Hody, let's go to this big pizza place to kind of, hey, I want to hype up my own campaign, my treat, and you get a whole bunch of pizzas, we buy a whole bunch of friends, you leave, you don't pay, I'm going to say something to you, right? I'm going to
Right,
be
right,
like,
right,
hey, John and I might still be friends, but like, hey, I thought we agreed for you to buy that,
right.
right? And instead it was just immediate water under the bridge, no worries, right? Like we'll foot the bill for your campaign, you know, Mr. Master. To show exactly how little Donald Trump thought about it, there's actually some insight, which I was appreciative. You know how he promised free Ross on day one, which he didn't do? And it was
Right.
very strange, right? Because we're like, oh my gosh, like we sold out the whole party. We're not getting what the one thing we asked for in return. She tells this story about how she got this call later and he was like, oh yeah, we were supposed to do something for you. I forgot. Was it commute? Pardon? What was it? And she was like, well, if they forgot, I'm just gonna tell them pardon, even though we agreed on a commutation, right? So that's why one, it was a day late, and two, that it was a full pardon instead of a commutation because Trump forgot about her. That's oops, right?
Yeah, that's how much he's stuck in his head. Now,
Right.
and again, I will say this again, like if this was really a strategy you were pursuing, the first thing is it's got a limited shelf life, right? Like if this is your plan, how long is that valuable? It's only valuable as long as the Libertarian Party is a distinct enough brand from the Uniparty. Otherwise, what's the point? You're just a caucus of one of the Uniparty participants at that point, right?
Mhm.
And it also begs the question: if this is your thing, if you're down with Trump, if you're one of these idiots that thinks Trump should have a third term and challenge the constitutional amendment and all that, which there's plenty of those. If you're one of those people, why not just form a caucus in the Republican Party and peddle your nonsense there? Okay. So that's what I find objectionable. I also don't think like, hey, why aren't you selling out for Democrats? Aren't there like Democrats you could work with in certain blue states to get more liberty in those states, or do we just ignore those people? I mean, if you listen to the free staters, obviously they're like, yeah, we don't care. Dead socialist is the best socialist. Like they don't care, right? But if you're McArdle and allegedly this is your plan, why are you only aligning with the MAGAs? Why, like, you can't believe that they're the liberty aligned party in every situation, right?
Yeah.
So why aren't you spreading that around if that's your real strategy, which clearly isn't, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So
it's not a great. The thing is, we've done this before. The Liberty Movement, like 30 years ago, we did the paleo strategy. Lou Rockwell, founder of the paleo strategy, he and Murray Rothbard co-founded it, right? Like
right,
kind of what we call that wasn't even the original sellout. That they copied a movement that tried and failed 30 years before that, and they're like, hey, that obviously failed, but what can we do this time that will be different? Right. So they're like, all right, let's figure out something different, right? Like let's do something unique. They didn't do anything unique. It failed 30 years before that. It failed that time. Lou Rockwell noted at the time that he was like, the guys who threw his support behind, get ready to laugh about this, Big John. The libertarian heroes that we sold out for were David Duke and Pat Buchanan. Oopsie freaking daisies on that one, right? And even Lou Rockwell noted that Pat Buchanan, as soon as he got any amount of like power, stopped caring about the wars, stopped caring about the Fed, stopped caring about taxation. It was all unfortunately devolved into anti-Semitism. And I'm telling you this, even if you have a high bar for what you call bigoted, Lou Rockwell, who will quote like the Daily Stormer on his own website, right? Like Lou freaking Rockwell, who like was willing to lie about the credits of the Mighty Ducks to make it sound like minorities can't do stunts, right? Like this is that Lou Rockwell said that it was like the movement had devolved into just anti-Semitic bigotry, and it was nothing more than that, and it really did nothing for liberty. So it was a recognized failure. We've done it again, right? we managed to do this again, and it's so frustrating because we didn't learn our lesson. We didn't change anything.
right.
We've done this before. Listen, we've had libertarians in cabinet positions for Donald Trump's first term. The person he put in charge of transportation was super exciting for libertarians. That wasn't even a deal. That was just somebody who was a self-described libertarian. I at the time was very optimistic, right? I was like, this is cool to even be loosely associated with that. We did nothing, right?
Right.
Robert Kennedy Jr. is supposed to be the libertarian that was promised in cabinet this time, and he's been authoritarian as all get out, right? Like banning all kinds of stuff. He doesn't rule as a libertarian, right? Like he is ruling as a statist. Now, you might like what he is doing, sure, but this is not an advancement for liberty. And so the idea then that like these cabinet positions are so sacred that they'll
Right.
change the whole, like, because Angela McArdle was like, oh, but we could just change the whole staff. You know, if we just get one libertarian, they'll have to talk with them and compromise with them and think about them. That's not the way Donald Trump or any politicians work, right? Even if you get somebody on that staff, you're like, oh, they're tokens, whatever. Just do whatever you want to do and forget about them. I mean, we've got Tulsi Gabbard. She was supposed to be the anti-regime person, literally just fired 2 intelligence officers this week. And the reason, and I am not even kidding, in the leaked email, another leak, by the way, from our intelligence and defense person,
Right.
so that's great, in the leaked email, is that they didn't like Donald Trump. That is the reason, right? Like, so
Right.
Trump is going to twist you. Politics is going to twist you. I don't think Trump is unique in this regard.
Right.
So the idea that us getting a position of power without actually securing liberty, like real legitimate liberties, real legitimate rights, Angela should have, if this is going to be a strategy, she should have proposed something like ending the war on fentanyl, like, you know, something big, right? This is a big
Right.
deal, right? When you get 3% of the vote, that's the margin in all these races, right? That's the margin of victory. So, like, get something real. The idea that to sell it out for cabinet positions to me is, I don't get it. We've done it and failed before. And so when we do it and fail again, I'm not going to be surprised. This is history. We're just doing
Right.
it again.
All right. So I think that pretty much exhausts the McArdle speech portion of the show. But like for those out there, yeah, definitely if you have any comments on YouTube, X, Facebook, Rumble, where you're seeing us right now, please feel free to hit us up on the chat. We'd love to hear your opinions on this. And Hody, as we transition over to our next topic, it seems like we're having some intrigue once again as comes to the National Party, the LP National. Now, just to set the stage a little bit on this, I'm going to put up a screen here, and hopefully it'll come up nicely. There we go. Hey, there you go, Hody, down in the off on the side now. But this is some reporting out there where LPNH Chair Ben Weir threatens LNC over Red Path motions. And we'll talk about those in a second. In a short message from which I quote here, Ben Weir wrote, "You will face the full and unapologetic wrath of both myself and the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire." This in response to the Bill Redpath motions in the LNC. And I will talk to those. And then Third Party Watch noted that Weir, LNC Chair Michaela, Treasurer Redpath, and finally the full LNC for comments. They reached out, but for the most part, nobody replied. Now, the thing to note about this, Hody, is the motions that Weir was so set off with, promising the full vengeance and whatever of the LPNH against the National Committee, was that Bill Redpath, the treasurer, basically has 2 motions to be considered. Now, I'm paraphrasing the wording, but you'll get the gist of it. The first motion is to censure and disaffiliate LP New Hampshire. The censure is for their often ridiculous social media posts, often tinged with bigotry, often tinged with violent imagery. Take your pick. And also, the motion includes disaffiliation for the violation of the bylaws, which said that an LP state affiliate cannot endorse the nominee of another party, which they violated by endorsing Donald Trump. The second motion is to censure the LP Colorado for their activities. One would presume for attempting to bypass LP National's presidential and vice presidential nominees, Chase Oliver and Mike Termott, in favor of placing RFK Jr. on the ticket and Nicole Sheridan. So it kind of leaked out that these, it's not really leaked out, right, because the email list is public, but that these will be considered as part of the LNC. So that's where they're trying to head on that. Now, Weir, I want to be fair to Ben Weir here. He then responded to the circulation of that thread of his, and he said, for once, it would be good to see a full report with the entire email instead of just the part that they thought was scary. LOL. I had a pretty reasonable request, which was that if someone has any issues, that they should message me directly and we could talk about it. Instead, they went straight to disaffiliate and censure, to which I responded that they were cowards for not trying to talk to me before getting to this point. And I said that because they failed to communicate, and if they choose to still do so without communicating, they will reap the consequences, parenthetically, as shown in the screenshot. Since that email was sent, I have spoken directly with Carol Ann Harlows, Bill Redpath, and Paul Darr on the phone, as well as a few others. It's really amazing what actual communication can do. So whether you feel that absolves them of anything, I don't know. But so let's sort of back up a little bit now that we've kind of talked about what's being flung around on social media right now. So Hody, first of all, let's talk about the motions that Redpath put forward that supposedly I think are going to be voted on. I think. What do you think about that? Do you think he has a legitimate does he have justification for these motions, do you think?
Yeah, so a censure is really not a big deal. It's like getting written up at work. Now, obviously, it'll make you feel bad if you value your job. And that, I guess, is something. But there's not really an official penalty that goes with it unless the LP wants to apply additional penalties with it to say, like, hey,
Right.
a lot of times you'll lose your social media access for 2 weeks or something like that, that there'll be some kind of temporary injunction that they would decide at the time, maybe right then, maybe later, but essentially some penalty that they would want to imply for being censured. Right. But the penalty is essentially a slap on the wrist. It's performative. Regular parties do this too, by the way.
Right.
You can get censured. We've heard this before, right? Politicians getting censured for their conduct. You find out this happens in the mainstream when we find out a politician has used official taxpayer funds to visit underage women, and the first thing they'll get is a censure, and while the investigation's going on, to be like, hey, at the very least, we know you're being stupid. Now let's see the details about this, right? So really, it is a small penalty, but it is important because we do need to find a way. If you run a McDonald's, Big John, and one of the McDonald's says, I don't like McDonald's, I like Burger King. We're going to advertise here that we're serving up Burger King here at our McDonald's location. Well, that's not going to happen. Like, this is an absurd situation for a good reason. That should never happen. I go to McDonald's for McDonald's. I'm not here for Burger King, right? I'm not here at the Libertarian Party to support Donald Trump. I'm here to support libertarianism, So we need a mechanism that enables what McDonald's does if their guys get out of line for us. Now, the danger on that, of course, is then all of a sudden, if you get a chair in an LNC, which they've had, all of a sudden just says, well, we want to completely disaffiliate this entire thing, even though they're being libertarians. I mean, we can imagine if this power were kind of colloquially used, what would Angela McArdle and her almost exclusively Mises Caucus staff have done to all these other affiliates, right? So I understand not wanting to come down hard here. And this is what Nikayla is really trying to balance here, is saying, I don't want to set a precedent for the future that makes it so that if the wrong people get in power, suddenly we're just everybody's in trouble. So a censure is a really good, safe way to do it, because if we were preaching actual liberty, Big John, and bad people took over and we got censured, you and I would be like, oh no, right? Like, it doesn't actually do anything. But it is a way for them to say, hey, this has to stop. To be clear, so in the case of New Hampshire, they actually do cite there is a specific bylaw that they violated. And they did endorse Donald Trump for president. That is illegal per our bylaws. Not illegal per the US government system. The Libertarian Party is like having a club. And if somebody violates the rules at your club, it's on the club to deal with it, not so much the government, right?
Right.
So it's illegal, but our own laws. And so it's like, what are we going to do for them violating the law? And in the case of Colorado and New Hampshire, it's excessive. They make Colorado just a couple days ago was like, turn those slave boats around, which you think would be good, but it's because you've got like blacks and Jews on them, and you don't know what you're introducing to this country by putting blacks and Jews over here.
Right. It's awful. An old hack. It's an old hack meme that if you could go back in time, that was the meme. If you went back in time, you would tell them to turn those slave ships around because you don't know what you're doing in the future, type of thing, right? So it's one of those old racist, and I think the franchise analogy, Hody, that you made is perfect for this, because a lot of these New Hampshire people, I've seen some of their responses, which is, oh, it's free speech. And this was actually their argument in Reno when they took away the anti-bigotry plank from the Libertarian Party, right? Which was as soon as they got in office, and there was a lot of negotiating that Spike Owen had to play mediator and say, like, let's put some language back in. Guys like Amash would say, like, what's the point in you could still be a free speech advocate without endorsing bigotry, right? Like, you can do both. They're not mutually exclusive. The Libertarian Party is a franchise. It awards franchises of its brand out to state affiliates, right? I can't start up the Long Island Libertarian Party and consider myself an affiliate of the national party, right? I have to apply. I have to do this. I have to do that, right? So for them, when you hear some of these responses from either Colorado or New Hampshire, they'll always try to change the conversation to libertarians believe in free speech. We're radical. We want to put forth a radical agenda. We want to humiliate the statists and all that, whether you believe in those arguments or not. And a lot of people do. That's not the issue here. The issue is a specific bylaw that they agreed to, meaning the state affiliate agreed to. It's a contract. It's contract law. You signed on the dotted line, whether it was you or your club's representative. Now, I understand where Ben Weir is saying, like, hey, man, this predates me. All I'm asking is give me a chance to lead properly. And I feel for him, but the fact that they have a new leader doesn't change the past activity. And it also doesn't change the continual tweaking at LP National. Like, I've seen, I think, several times where they're like, okay, go ahead, try to disaffiliate us. Don't care. So there's all this, especially with LPNH. LP Colorado, I think, is a different set of nonsense going on there. I think it's, who was it, Goodman? Is she still Goodman, the chair or the former chair?
No, I believe she is still the chair.
Okay.
And then Colorado, so LPNH, so both are just censorship motions. The one for New Hampshire includes an offer to disaffiliate for them to take up, right? That's essentially nothing unless they decide to take it up. I would love for them to do it.
Right.
I don't think they will, but at least the offer is made. The offer isn't there for Colorado. Of course, anybody can disaffiliate at any time. You're right? We have actually had in the past affiliates not like our candidate and disaffiliate. That's what you do, right? Like, if you just say, I can't support this person, I disaffiliate, elect somebody else because I'm not going to do this anymore. You mentioned it perfectly that you already agreed to these rules. We called Donald Trump out when he was like, when they were like, oh, your job is to uphold the Constitution. You made an oath to uphold the Constitution. He's like, well, I don't know if did I? Is that my process? Like, right. Like,
I don't know.
Did he said, is that my obligation? And they're like, yes. You made an oath on it, right? And he's like, I guess I made an oath, whatever. That this is the same thing, but for libertarians, that it's like, if you don't like the rules, don't play the game. And that's, listen, I am somebody who doesn't like the rules and doesn't play the game. right? I am not affiliated with the Libertarian Party because I have trouble with their rules, right? I'm
Right.
out here in Utah. It's a long story. I could talk about it some other time, but yeah, like I have problems with certain rules. And so I therefore am like, well, I'm not going to sign and agree to play by these rules if I don't like them,
Right.
And so that invitation is there. It's not even a penalty. Think about some of the best strides in the liberty movement have actually been made from people that felt disenfranchised by the Libertarian Party, the Cato Institute, Reason. I mean, there are huge think tanks, like huge government activist single issue coalitions that have gotten a lot done on marriage equality, drug legalization. People that left the Libertarian Party because they didn't feel they could get it done there. So it should be okay for you to be like, I am not into this Libertarian candidate, the rules, whatever, and I'm going to leave. The Libertarian Party in Colorado, you're right, is a little bit different. So they tried to get Kennedy on their ballot, which would have been
Right.
the exact same violation of the bylaws as well. I guess it would be a little different in the sense that LPNH endorsed Donald Trump. This would be actually putting somebody else on the ballot, right? Which would be a breach of like 100 different bylaws.
Right. Right.
Karen Ann Harlows, who I believe was their secretary at the time.
No. Karen Ann used her position as secretary with National to submit Chase and Termott to the Colorado Secretary of State to place on the ballot. And it was just her diligence that prevented it because she got to the state Secretary of State first.
Got it.
And LP Colorado tried to contact the secretary, and which I think McArdle was part of this, where they said, no, that's not what we meant to do. No, except the RFK one, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is where someone like Karen Ann gets a lot of credit from me. She stood up to her. Look, she was Mises all the way, right? And she stood up to her compatriots and said, this is wrong. I don't care about Chase any more than you do, but he won. So he's our candidate. Those are what the bylaws state.
Yeah.
So Karen Ann prevented that, but LP openly, it was just through her diligence that they did not violate those bylaws, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise they would have.
And Goodman, unfortunately, using the official LPCO account, responded to a journalist and used slurs. Completely inappropriate conduct. That is mentioned in this censorship thing, that this is really not the way we want our brand represented. It's embarrassing. I can't repeat it on air. And it really comes off as, hey, just let me talk to you. Oh, you mother effort from this.
Right.
You're just like, whoa, right? Like, we're over here. You and I are trying to make libertarianism look good. I mean, let's be honest. Grumblings Media is a conservatarian outfit, right? We're on the libertarian end of it, but there are paleos here, there are conservatives here. And we're trying to form some kind of alliance as much as we can, get along where we can, admit our differences when we can,
right?
Talk things out, get better. But I have a great relationship with William Del Pilar, right? Like, and he and I are polar opposites when it comes to like even culture stuff, right? Like just very different. But I enjoy a really positive relationship with him. I look forward to talking with him. We can talk with each other without putting each other down.
Right.
And this was just the aggression and hostility. I understand you're talking to the media. You think the media's corporate, whatever it may be. But just the way it was represented makes the Libertarian Party look terrible. And censorship is, like I say, we don't need an official reason to censure, right? We can just say, this is bad behavior. I'm writing you up. A write-up at work, I don't need to make sure, like, you violated this law, you violated this thing. But I can just be like, hey, your attitude's bad. And I'm like, well, I'm allowed to have a bad attitude. Well, technically, yeah, right? Like, there's nothing that gets you like explicitly fired. But ultimately, I need to be able to do something when people bring the attitudes down, even if they're not explicitly swearing, even if they're not like peeing in somebody's food. There does come to a point where I need to be like, listen, you're bringing everybody down here by being like cross all the time. And I'm gonna step in and do something. And I really like, this is Bill Redpath stepping in. We actually tried to get him on the show.
We did. Yeah.
Not a social media guy. He's more of a grassroots guy, and I applaud him for that. That's probably good. That's probably commendable. But yeah, props to him for being like, you know what, we have tried just gently talking with both of these affiliates, and it's not working. That would be my preference as well. Nikayla tried it. Even Michael Heiss and Dave Smith have tried it, right? People that I disagree with have been like, guys, this makes us look bad. We need to stop. We have tried gently talking with them. We need to do something else. And a formal censorship, I think, is probably the right thing to do.
Well, to your point, whether a censorship is effective or not remains to be seen. But it does help reclaim some of the PR battle, because you want other people, like I've seen a lot of expos from people to say, I am not coming back to the LP until you get rid of the stain that's the LPNH. Even if I'm not a New Hampshire resident, they make all libertarians look bad, because, as you and I have also discussed, you get a lot more attention for the negative stuff on social media than you do for the positive stuff, whether it's human nature or whatever. Call it algorithmic, whatever. One stupid homophobic tweet from LPNH will get more algorithmic love than be talking about Austrian economics, or you talking about love for our fellow man, right? It's just, it is the way it is, right? So I think the party, and if Stephen Nikayla is listening, I know on occasion he might, like, I agree with him. I'd rather not have to come down hard on any affiliate. Again, as libertarians, we do prize independent thought and all that. But at the same time, to your McDonald Burger King, which was an excellent analogy, go do you, LPNH, go do you, Jeremy Kaufman, elsewhere. The fact that you're staying and using the libertarian name, the libertarian banner, you still value that affiliateship? Is that affiliation? I guess is the right term here. You value that affiliation, or else you would go somewhere where you wouldn't catch this type of beef, right? Grief, rather. So there is value even to LPNH. So if I'm and which is ironic now that I think about it, considering Stevens, I think he's a franchise owner of several fast food restaurants, right? So my point is, your franchise analogy works good for our chair, because yeah, if I own a McDonald's or an Arby's, I don't want Subway opening up there and or pushing like Subway stuff out of a McDonald's, right? Because I've built up a McDonald's franchise. I've paid a lot of money to set up this McDonald's franchise. I don't want the guys that I hire, like in other franchises, undercutting that. And even more importantly, nobody forced you to be a McDonald's franchisee. You chose to become a McDonald's franchisee. You signed an agreement that says, in exchange for blank dollars and blank support and blah, 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 you will sell the McDonald's menu, and I will adhere to the McDonald's menu. LPNH is not doing that. LPCO is not doing that. The one thing LPCO, they, like I said, they got saved unwittingly or wittingly by Karen Ann, so they didn't actually violate any bylaws, to my knowledge, whereas LPNH did. So guess what? You done stepped in it. So in my opinion, I'm pretty sure they've tried talking this out, whether it was with Ben or the previous chair. And Ben, sorry, man. I understand you took over, and you may not have been responsible for that stuff, but your organization still bears responsibility, right? The fact that Stephen took over doesn't mean that Angela's debts for the LNC suddenly disappeared, right? The creditors aren't saying, oh, let's give Stephen a chance because he wasn't here when all this nonsense went down, right? He's still on the hook as the chair of the organization. So yeah, so Ben Weir needs to. I mean, again, I'm not saying he stands behind this. I don't know if he does or not. But I get that he may feel put upon like this. But guess what? You should have known what you were stepping into as well. I might even be a little bit more vindictive than you, Hody, and say the offer to disaffiliate should be the disaffiliate, unless we see positive change. Like, even give them a timetable.
Yeah.
Give them a timetable. But I think that it's gotten to the point, because when people come to you and say, do all libertarians hate black people? You get questions like that.
Yep.
right? Because they see this nonsense coming out of LPNH and LPCO to a lesser extent. I just think LPNH is better at promoting that hard shit. So
Yep.
so we'll see. But that's my opinion. I don't know if anybody else out there agrees with me or not. But like, I honestly would be like, we've given them enough. We've talked to them more. We've given them enough opportunity to recant or you know use your messaging, but here's the parameters for your messaging, right? Don't even tell them what to say. I don't believe in that. But just say, look, try to abide by FCC standards. Try not to offend 3/4 of this country. Like, that's not where we're at as a political party.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I want them to have a turnaround. Weir is tough. He said, I think Jews are like the most violent minority, and was invited to correct it and say like maybe Israel or something, or anti-Zionism, and didn't want to correct it. So he has already said that LPNH and LPCO are their best examples
Right.
for people to follow in the Libertarian Party, even after this. So he's not doing himself any favors with this one. It's one of those things like, do you give Adrian Malagon a chance to turn things around? Well, he was part of the problem, right? So it's like, I don't know about that, right? Like, we're not exactly, my Rockies. Oh, my Rockies, but it's like when we're canning Bud Black and then replacing them with who knows, it's like, well, is that person better? Like, I don't know. Like, it's there. We do, like you said, we really do need to see some positive direction. I think this needs to be something, we need to change the way they metric themselves. Because listen, Dave Smith and Michael Heiss both noted when they talked to them, you do get more popularity when you, one, sell out to the duopoly. First of all, I always point this out, but Joshua Eagle, Joshua Smith, Austin Peterson, if you are a former libertarian who sells out to the mainstream, either Republican or Democratic Party, doesn't matter, your voice will be very amplified. This is what the media, this is what the mainstream business wants you to do. They don't want people rocking the boat. So you will have your voice amplified if you sell out. That is just a natural thing. The other thing you can do is be on the wrong side and crap the bed, right? Like, and what Dave Smith was like, if you want to see people who have the highest followings that are in like libertarian circles, they've denied the Holocaust. Right? Because it's just the easiest way to do it, right? Is to just be, you will get a ton of followers. You'll get on Fox News. You'll get, you'll get retweeted by Meghan McCain. You'll get all that attention that you wanted if all you do is retweet, is say something about like denying the Holocaust numbers or something like that. You tweet something anti-Semitic. It's one of their most popular tweets of all time, right? Like, it's, yes, you will get this popularity. So the issue is they will turn around and be like, but our popularity. And Michael Heiss was even like, but we lost donors. We lost members. Your membership numbers are shrinking. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're getting attention, but it's like pooping on the bus. You're getting attention and then people are getting off because you pooped on the bus, right? And then it's like, well, our bus is the most notable bus. More people are talking about our poop bus than any other libertarian bus. Well, of course. That's a notable thing if you are the poop bus, right? Like, that is a notable thing. So you're going to be discussed. It's really, and so we need to change the way that we view them as well. This is accountability on our part to be able to recognize bad behavior. And I think one of the changes that I would like to see is we a lot of times defend something on the technicality, right? We say, well, it is free speech. That's not the way I'd say it, but technically listen, bad behavior is bad behavior. If we're not supposed to be in the swimming pool and I see somebody dipping their toes in there, get out of the swimming pool, right? As soon as somebody's like, is this technically cheating on my wife? Don't do it, right? Like, I don't want to see how close you can get to going with another girl before I say you technically cheated, right? That's a stupid game. And that's an unethical game. And so when these guys are like, well, technically, is it libertarianism? If they are straddling that line, I want people who are so enthused about it that they don't even have to get asked about that line. I'm going to end with this because I think what you said is my core frustration. That I have a difficult time calling myself a libertarian when I know that half of just kind of normal people who just casually don't really engage with politics, they're just trying to live their life, are just like, oh, that means you're racist, right? Like Jamie and both of us, when we dated, we met on a Christian dating site, and both of us these days we have it said we'd be reluctant to call ourselves Christians because of what has happened with mainstream evangelical Christianity. I am still a Christian. My belief is strong,
Right.
but I don't want to give people the wrong impression. And so I want people to know that I love them. And if I don't communicate maximum love, I'll use another Dave Smith quote or whatever. Like libertarianism is based on love. And if we are preaching love, making it sound hateful, we've not only failed, we've failed cataclysmically so.
I agree.
And so I think that the issue with people being like, oh, do all libertarians hate black people? Do all of you believe what Nathan Larson wrote? Do all of you believe what LPNH is saying because they're the most popular? Oh, you guys sold out for Trump. Who's the most famous, according to the polls, who's the most famous libertarian in the world right now? Donald Trump. Donald Trump, number one, right? That's who our representative is right now in most people's eyes. And so it's going to take real work to fix this label. And the
Right.
work is only harder when you have people like LPNH and LP Colorado. We need to we need to be very, and I don't want to say force them to behave a certain way because that freedom is part of the beauty, but we do need to pressure people to go in the opposite path right now and just be like, we're going to preach maximum love. And I don't want anybody confusing the libertarian message with one of brutalism, Hoppianism, throwing people out of helicopters, Pinochet, Trump, Mussolini, Hitler, all that stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And libertarians have been a bad example of it lately.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's interesting, and I'll give you this last anecdote as both an instructive anecdote and also to be a shameless pimp for my other content. This past week, I interviewed Chrissy Mayer. She's very popular stand-up comic, uh, closely associated at first with libertarianism, and now she's migrated over to I would say the MAGA camp. But when I was asking her about her political journey for one segment of the show, she did say to me, I said, yeah, and I just made the offhand comment. I said, a lot of people are a little hinky with what's coming out in New Hampshire. And she said, you mean like what? And when I started to give her a few examples, she goes, oh, as if to say, like, I wasn't aware that there was another kind of libertarianism or that, they base it on bad Hoppian interpretations, or maybe those are his actual interpretations. And to me, again, that to your point, that's what's dangerous, right? Like, I don't want to have to, people say, what are you? And I say a libertarian, and they think I'm either a racist or that horrible comment that came out when I think it was Kaufman that said something along the lines like, well, if your kid gets cancer and you don't have insurance, then maybe he should die, or something to that effect. Uh, Look, man, I understand that you can make some sort of free market argument that would lead you to that conclusion, but why would you say that and then expect to get the right type of people to your movement? If you're a libertarian, right? Like you said, it should be based on love. It should be based on respect. It shouldn't be based on let's let people die in the street. We don't want government doing that, but I would hope that part of the credo here is we take care of our own. So I think that's what's important, and I will agree with you on that, Mr. Hody. All right, Hody. I think this is a good point to wrap up the show. It's been certainly one that seems like both of us may have gotten a bit passionate about, which I think is good at the end. We refrain from using too many four-letter words, so I think that places us ahead of LPNH and LPCO. Hody, last, what do you have to say before we sign off?
Yeah, I might not be in the Libertarian Party, but when I was even invited to leave, the Libertarian Party is supposed to be good partners with activists. It's something that you'll hear from longtime Libertarian Party, insiders. They take care of elections. They set the groundwork for, electoral success, basically, and can help us out with messaging. And then we, on the activist end of things, which I've decided to be on, we're doing something completely different than libertarian politics. Now, there are people who do both, right? And that's fine, but let's not confuse the two. Like, the Libertarian Party is there for electoral success and to push that culture in that direction. And the activists are on the ground, and ideally we should be great partners. And this is what I
Right.
want to see. This is why I still don't mind talking about the Libertarian Party and hoping that it succeeds, because it's not for me, but it is for people that I want to be good allies with, right? Like, it is a good place. It is, they can make my job very difficult or make my job very easy. And
Right.
so I want to see their culture fixed so that things go a little bit better. Um, yeah, it's that's the importance, I think, of talking about stuff like this. It is very insider baseball. I get that. And it's funny is we get we get so many views when we talk about this stuff. We get so many hits, we get so many comments. I do not often love talking about it, but I think there's like, this Libertarian Party thing's not going away.
Right.
If you don't like the Republicans or Democrats, there's not really a lot of other places to turn if you're a liberty lover, right? And if you recognize, if you're against war, what do you do? Right? Like, what do you do? And so I want to be a good ally to them as much as I can. Take this criticism as constructive, take things that I want to see. With the scope that I'm an activist, I can't tell you how to do your jobs. You would do your jobs better than I would do your jobs. It's like me commenting on what I want to see the Denver Broncos do this offseason, right? Like,
Right.
I do want to see them succeed, but I understand that I can't play football as well as them either. So, I want them to do their jobs, to do them to the best of their abilities as much as they can. And I just want to be as good an ally as I can. So, if you're listening to this and you think you have something to say, John and I are always looking for comments, for interviewees, especially hot topics and current events. If there's one that hits you in a certain way, please pass this along, whether you're inside or outside the LP. We'd love to hear from you. Other than that, I'm actually on my way to have a good weekend with the family. I do vacations very rarely. I prefer a staycation. In this case, I'm actually going to the Rock Springs. I'm going to sink my body into some 100-degree natural
Nice.
temperature waters. And the hotter the better. I actually really love it. So I'm very excited about that.
Super jelly about you being able to get away for that weekend. And you deserve it, Hody. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again here on Free for All.